Welcome back to Let's Make a Game, a channel about making computer role-playing games using the free program Twine and the Sugarcube format for Twine. In this video, I would like to continue talking about my current project of coding the combat system for a viewer's game. In particular, they've asked me to add a new event that can happen during combat. They want, in particular combats, they want the possibility that a giant mosquito will turn up behind the player character and any companions, cutting off their escape until they can kill that mosquito, of course. I won't show you. Normally, I sort of play the game and show you an example of that event. I'm not going to do that this time, mainly because I've just coded determining whether this event happens, and then if it does happen, all the program currently does is just gives you a message. It just says a giant mosquito appears, cutting off your escape, something like that. Anyway, actually, I'll tell you what it says. Sorry, I won't guess. It says a giant mosquito appears behind you, blocking your escape. So yeah, there's nothing really to show in terms of gameplay. Obviously, we're going to have to code what happens when the event occurs, but that'll be for a future video. So we don't have any new variables for this, but we have made a slight change to one variable. I'll just zoom in a bit to make it easier to see. And that new variable is enc_geo, which stands for encounter geography. And in particular, it's to this section of the data of that array, and in particular, slot 0. As you may recall, if you follow this series, slot 0 used to be set to either 1 or 0, and it determined whether the player character end of the battlefield was open, meaning that the player character and companions could escape from the battle, or closed, meaning that they couldn't. They had to sort of get rid of all of the mosquitoes or die. There's now another possible value, which is 2, and that's a special case, as it says in this note. And that just means treat it as if it's open, but also there's a chance that a giant mosquito will turn up and sort of outflank the party, or pin them, pen them in, or whatever you want to call it. So enc_geo, we don't really refer to it during the execution of the program. We basically write stuff from it into variables, and then we look at those variables. And the variable that we're most interested in this video is esc_pc, which stands for player character escape. That is whether escape from the combat is possible from the PC's end, as it says in the note. And as I say, it was 0 or 1, but now it's 0, 1, or 2. And once I had done that, I thought to myself, well, I might have places in the program, I probably do have places in the program, where I say if esc_pc is equal to 1, then do something that's related to treating the that end of the battlefield as open. And that won't work anymore, because I want that to apply if the value is 2 as well. So to find those examples, I used the find and replace functionality that Twine has. It's in the story menu that's up here. And I just went if esc_pc, and I found, well, when we do it now, we find four matching passages, but this one is a result of the changes I made. So actually, I only found 3. And so I looked in all those 3. It's companion moves, print distances, and player character. Companion moves, I found if ESC underscore PC equals 0, and then it gives a message that says, well, the companion wants to retreat, but they're blocked, and so they don't do anything. And that's fine. That's what I wanted. That's treating 1 and 2 as working the same, the way that we used to treat a value of 1. When you do this, when you're searching for examples of a particular syntax, always remember that it won't tell you how many are. It'll just highlight passages where it occurs at least once. It won't tell you if it occurs more than once. So it's easy to go, oh, well, that must be it, and X out of it. But in fact, you should scroll down just to make sure that it's not anywhere else. Now, if it's really long, unfortunately, a lot of programs have a Control F function or a Command F function, which allows you to look for particular text within, well, in this case, within a passage or within a document. Twine doesn't have that functionality, unfortunately. So if it's a really long bit of code, this one's quite short, but if it's a long bit of code and you're worried that you might miss a case of what you're looking for, it's probably better to get into the passage, Command A or Control A, Command C or Control C, and then paste it all into a document that does have Control F and use it there, like paste it into Word or something like that and search there. But in this case, it's a pretty short bit of code, so I wasn't worried. In print distances, we did have an example of something I needed to change. It was down here. It used to say if ESC underscore PC is equal to 1, then print this open in square brackets, otherwise print closed. Well, actually, we want it to be if ESC underscore PC is greater than 0, then print open, otherwise print closed. Because as it was, it would have printed closed if it was if the value of ESC underscore PC was 2. And that's not what we wanted. And then in player character, again, I had to change it because it was to do with whether we print this button that allows the player character to flee. And if ESC underscore PC is 2, we actually do want them to flee, because 2 doesn't mean a giant mosquito has turned up. It means that a giant mosquito might turn up in the future. If a giant mosquito does turn up, we'll change the value of ESC underscore PC. So we had to change it from if ESC underscore PC is equal to 1, we had to change that to if it's greater than 0. All right, so those were sort of small little fiddly changes, I guess, but the main change we also have to have, well, if we're having this possibility in certain cases that a giant mosquito might turn up behind the party, when's that going to happen? Well, it's going to happen, I decided, at the beginning of a round, but not at the beginning of the first round. That might not be what the viewer wants, and if so, I'll change it, but that was my decision. And so when is it going to be the beginning of a round but not the first round? Well, that's going to be in the next character passage. The next character passage is when a given character has finished acting, and then we determine, okay, that's the next character's go, but sometimes all of the characters have gone, and so therefore we have to start a new round. So that's what we're doing in this passage. So this is where we might be wanting to add the link to the new material that we're going to write. So the way we do that is we increase ini underscore slot. We haven't talked about ini underscore slot for a while because it's used. We'd basically finished with it. It's not used sort of during a character's actions, and that's what we've been doing for the last several videos, is different types of characters doing different types of actions. It's used once a character has gone to keep track of who's going to go next. We increment this, and then if the number is greater than combatants, which is another variable we haven't looked at for a while, it's the number of characters involved in the combat at the start of the combat. Of course, the number of combatants in the combat will go down because different combatants will get killed or run away. But if it's greater than the number of combatants, then what we used to do is we used to say, that's the end of the round. We'll start another one. How do we start another one? Well, we go to roll initiative. So we include roll initiative. But that's not sufficient now, because we need to have this new material. So what we do is we say, if ESC underscore PC is equal to 2, then include flank, which is the name that I chose for the passage where we're going to put most of the new code, the code that's to do with checking whether this thing turns up. Otherwise, if ESC underscore PC is not 2, I'll just continue as you are. All right. So obviously, as you've probably guessed, we're going to spend the rest of the video looking at flank. So how does flank work? Well, the giant mosquito doesn't necessarily turn up straight away. It's sort of random as to whether they will turn up. I decided arbitrarily that it would be that you roll a die. I mean, the sort of equivalent of you roll a die, and if it's a 1, they turn up. So how do we simulate that? Well, we just say if random 1, 6 is greater than 1, then include roll initiative. Otherwise, we have to check, if we do roll a 1, well, we need to check whether the thing can turn up. We don't need to check if ESC underscore PC is equal to 2, because we're only going to get here. There's only one arrow that goes to it, and it only goes to it if ESC PC is indeed 2. So, goodness me. Oh, I see. Right. Sorry. So what do we need to check? Well, we need to first check whether the player character is in the very back of the battlefield. If they are, then the giant mosquito won't turn up. There are basically two possibilities there. One possibility, they just don't turn up if that slot is occupied. Other possibility, I suppose, we add a new slot, one behind the people occupying it, and they turn up there. But the viewer whose game this is going to be wanted that they don't turn up, so that's what we're doing. So and how do we check that? Well, we check if band underscore low is equal to 0. Band underscore low being the lowest numbered range band, and if it's equal to 0, because 0 is always numbered from where the player character is. Well, if band underscore low is 0, that means the player character is at the far end of the battlefield. If that's the case, we roll initiative. Otherwise, well, we still haven't determined whether the mosquito can turn up. We know the player character isn't in that range band, but there might be some companions, or one companion or more in that range band. So we do this thing that we've often done where we set Z equal to 0. We have a for loop that checks every relevant case and sets Z equal to 1 if that case is met. And then if Z is 1, we do one thing, and if it's not, we do the other thing. Okay, so how does that work? Well, set Z to 0. We have a for loop that goes from 1 to com underscore max, which is to say the maximum number of companions. And for each companion, we say, is companion Y2 greater than 0? In other words, are their hit points greater than 0? And is com Y3 equal to band low? In other words, is their position equal to band low? Com, short for companions, of course, is an array that keeps track of a lot of the details about the companions. And two of those details are their hit points and their location. If their hit points are greater than 0, meaning they're alive, because dead characters are sort of disappear, as it were, they're not counted, they don't block movement. If their hit points are greater than 0 and they're in the far end, well, we set Z equal to 1. Then, once the for loop is finished, we say if Z is equal to 1, which means at least one companion's in the range band, then roll initiative. Forget it, start again. Now, we could sort of set up a thing that says that the mosquito will turn up if that range band is ever vacated, like once we've rolled it, but that's not what they asked for, so I didn't do it. That'll be fairly easy. You just have a little variable and then you'd say if random 1 to 6 is greater than 1 and that variable equals 0 or something like that. But that's not what they wanted. So if there's a companion in that range band, we roll initiative. Else, and here at last, we've got to the point where the giant mosquito appears. So first thing we do is we set ESC_PC to 1 because we don't want another giant mosquito to appear. So we just set this to a normal sort of open, a normal value of open. It's going to print as open, but we're going to have to restrict movement. I mean, this is for a future video. It doesn't mean that the player characters can escape. It just means the end is open and they'll be able to escape if they kill that particular mosquito. And then we have a message that says a giant mosquito appears behind you, blocking your escape. And then, of course, lots of other things happen. We need to add this giant mosquito in, and we need to add restrictions on movement, essentially based on them being there, just as we restrict movement into the sort of main body of enemies. But that's what I'll be doing in the immediate future. For now, I've finished. I've shown you how we check whether the thing turns up, and so I will leave it there. I hope that was useful or interesting to at least some of you, and I hope you will tune in next time.